Hi, and welcome to a rather special episode of the Futurebuild Podcast. Today, I'm at BestFest in Glasgow, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Caitriona Jordan.
Hi there.
Hello.
Delighted to be here.
What an amazing event.
I know. Oh, I'm just still on the come down from it. It's been fantastic, the International Retrofit Conference today.
It's been brilliant. We've nicked your green room, and you've got a stellar lineup of speakers today. But before we delve into what you've been putting on today, and also we want to touch on Retrofit Scotland as well, I'd love to find out a little bit more about yourself.
Yes,
you're a chartered architect,
I'm an architect. I graduated as an architect and worked in practice both local authority and private sector. And then I moved into education, so lecturing in architectural technology, predominantly at college, City of Glasgow College. And key focus was around anything specific to architecture, but across the whole spectrum, from design drawings to refurbishments, teaching, so really, really broad. And then how I moved into BEST, Built Environment Smart Transformation, was really working through a lot of their collaboration projects that they do with colleges. I was seconded onto one of their projects, and then through that just found more and more interest in BEST and what they were doing, and I moved over in 2021 and to lead a skills programme, so a training skills programme predominantly around passive house but also low carbon construction techniques, which then evolved into retrofit skills and training as well, and then led me to now leading the team within Retrofit.
Brilliant. And so if anyone isn't aware of what BEST is, I mean, you've known 10 years, can you just give us a quick overview of what it is?
So BEST is funded through the Scottish Funding Council, and we are there to support industry, academia and the public sector accelerate to zero carbon, but recognising in a just transition as well. And we do that through a whole host of activity, predominantly focusing on retrofit and modern methods of construction. So our campus, we have two big facilities, one where we do a lot of our manufacturing, so we have the only CLT press in the UK. We have a CNC router, which we've just recently acquired, and we're putting that into production. And then we have the National Retrofit Centre, which was opened by the First Minister at the beginning of January. And we've actually, last year, so at the end of last year, secured funding to undertake a retrofit of our own. So, talking the talk and walking the walk now sort of thing, which has been really challenging. So we received 1.2 million through the Heat Decarbonisation Fund, which is delivered via SALEX, and just like any other retrofit, we've got a staged approach. We can't do it all at once. We can't afford to do it, so we're just doing a proportion of it and focusing on the offices, getting that up to the best standard. We can removing our existing heating system and deploying heat pumps as well in the building. So, but we're not just doing that. We're using all the kind of technology and innovation that we are supporting the industry. So we're looking at developing an off-site cladding system that will be actually most of it manufactured manufacturing facility as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you have a big approach around low carbon materials, in particular. You mentioned your CLC machines and press as well.
Yes.
There's a big focus on timber frame.
Yeah, big, huge focus on timber. We specifically Scottish homegrown timber. So Sam Hart leads the MMC team. Their focus is around how do we take Scottish homegrown timber, because I'm not so technical on this, but the structural stability of it, because it's to do with its moisture content. So, but by cross-laminating that, which we have in the CLT press, it ensures the structural stability of it. So that is actually one of the systems that we'll be piloting at the innovation in the retrofit. Is a CLT panel system with Scottish homegrown timber.
So I was going to ask you actually about some of the maybe challenges that are unique to Scotland, especially in terms of retrofit. Yeah. So what's the scale of the challenge and the opportunity? Yeah,
well, we know 80% of the existing building stock will be here today, or will be here in 2045.
Yeah.
So how do we retrofit that existing building stock? So big challenges. that local authorities will come to us and say, we've got this challenge to meet. How do we address it, and what we can do to support it? So there's a lot of challenges around retrofitting existing homes, and how we do that. And we've seen today a place-based approach, for example. How do we build in communities, engaging communities, thinking about the people who live in the homes, vulnerable people. How do we approach it? Mixed tenure. This is so complex, and there's so much within it. What we've been really doing and trying to kind of focus in on is understanding how can best support that activity. That's why we've launched today Retrofit Scotland as one of the reasons, so that we can be really focused. We've got a brilliant, our team's evolved over the past year. We've got now some new experts in different areas. So we've got experts in social housing. We've got Sarah Edmonds, community engagement. And we've got Rob Morrison, who's now taken on a role at Best. But his background is around industrial retrofit, but also deploying that as a community facility for people. So we're now Retrofit Scotland. We're looking at these 4 key areas: experience and delivering. Now we've been doing that for the past 4 years, but we really want to focus in on the retrofit practical training. Before it's been quite general before, but we now have a real focus on retrofit and practical training, and then convening communities. So how can we bring communities and involve them? So we have a whole programme starting. I think the first activity is starting at the end of the year, and that will be delivered at Civic House. So a whole programme of engaging with the community, and that'll be a 12-month programme called Retrofit Together Days. And then we've also been developing our offer. So what does retrofit? What can Best do? We do a lot of consultancy work, but in terms of it could be report writing, it can be supporting organisations with one-stop shops. We're doing a bit of work with Energy Systems Catapult around one-stop shops for York. So building on that experience that we can now support, within Scotland. So really supporting with using existing spaces and this kind of idea of business incubation, where businesses can work beside each other in a co-working environment and learn and build and develop ideas through that.
So Best's focus on retrofit is now huge. For those watching and listening. So we're at BestFest, which today is the International Retrofit Conference. You've just announced an alliance as well with nations, which we'll cover in a minute. Absolutely. And on top of that, now you're doing Retrofit Scotland as well. So huge programme. Tell us a little bit about today's conference and maybe some of the key themes that we've been looking at. It's been truly inspiring this morning.
It's been really inspiring. We had Charlie from Civic Square, who I think really captured everyone's attention and the work that they're doing, the community work that they're doing, but understanding that it's not being done to them, it's not being done to the community know this stuff. They live in buildings, they have the challenges, whether it be mould or health issues or the cost of living or fuel poverty. So they understand the problems that they have. So how in their support, how do they make them improve that through communities and communities.
And that's tackling as well some of the big issues, which is around skills as well, and issues within our supply chain as well, and the access to materials and that sort of thing. And I thought that was truly inspiring. Yeah,
it's really the skills aspect. We start to see it in so many pockets now, really building, especially within tertiary education. We work with colleges and universities, and they really see the need for the retrofit skills and training. And we just see that we're there to support. We have the access to the wider community. We can support colleges with the requirements that they need to start to build these skills. And so Best try to see where the gaps are, support the gaps, and then help the other organisations take it on at scale and at mass. And this morning we heard about the one-stop shops, retrofit one-stop shops that are happening, and everyone's at a different stage on that journey. And Matthias was talking around they're working with lots of different European partners, but they all have different legislation. They're all at different stages, so that's a bit of a challenge unpicking But it's really great to have him here to be able to say this is what's happening elsewhere internationally, and how can you get involved, or what can you do to support.
Yeah. And then we had Duncan Baker-Brown, obviously huge into reuse, reconstruction, and maybe where Civic Square focused a little bit more on the community side, Duncan was showcasing some of the projects at scale as well that can happen. And actually we're in an amazing venue today that's gone through a huge retrofit project.
Exactly, itself, and it's it's beautiful venue, and it's Morrison Construction that have carried out the retrofit of this building. But the stuff that Duncan was talking about, I was blown away by all the projects and all the reuse. I was like, that's, it's just, I was thinking, how do you get involved to do that? Because that's just mind blowing. Some of the, taking some of the existing structures and then reusing it for the other building, but it just happened. It's like,
and I think it showcases the innovation. It's not just the sort of the system change thinking. I think it's also the innovation that's coming through as well. And I think that's one of your pillars, isn't it, at Best as well? It's almost developing some of those innovations that can almost achieve retrofit at scale as well.
Yeah, definitely. With some of the work that we do with one particular company, Ecosystems Technology, they have a kit of parts system utilising Scottish homegrown timber, and how that can be adopted originally for retrofit projects. So they have a kit of part systems that can be deployed kind of on any building, and it's really great to see that retrofit solution kind of being developed as something that can be developed, can be scaled up. And we're really hoping, we heard Stephen talking this morning about the manufacturing centre and how that's come into play, so that will really support that activity.
You've mentioned Passive House quite a lot. What's the sort of uptake of Passive House in Scotland? Because obviously you have your own regs here as well.
Yeah. So we are working towards a Passive House Scottish equivalent standard.
Okay.
So it's coming into policy. So Best have been doing a whole host of workshops with the working group and Scottish Government around what should that standard be. So you obviously have a kind of range on the spectrum of who. You've got people who are passive house trusts, for example, and then others that are maybe a bit more resistant. So we've been doing a lot of collaboration and working together, working with them. And the public consultation just closed at the end of October, and the kind of timeline for that is 26 will come in kind of voluntary regulations, and then 28 will be mandatory. What those regulations are still being defined, but what's been really great is when we're in the room with these people who maybe house builders are not so keen on moving to that standard, for example, they understand the need and the urgency to do it, and it's how do they get there in a timely manner that will allow them to their supply chain, their teams to be upskilled. So that's really something we've put forward to the Scottish Government, is we need, the upskilling piece is huge. But one thing that's happened in Scotland is a net zero building standard for public sector buildings, which basically, if achieving a passive house or low carbon construction equivalent meets the standards. So tier 1, and this is for public buildings, so a lot of schools in Scotland are being built to passive house standards. So I think there's 15 just now on the books currently to passive house standard. So actually the tier 1s are fully bought into that, tier 1 contractors, and they've been really proactive in upskilling. And we actually had a session yesterday at BestFest in the afternoon where we've been working with 5 tier 1 contractors in Morrison Construction, Kier, Balfour Beatty, and Morgan Sindel, and there's one other I've forgotten. But we've been working with them, and they've produced a paper on things for clients to think about when they're procuring these passive house buildings in terms of standardising detail in construction. Some form factor issues as well. And after we had a session in the afternoon workshop, and someone said to me, it's just brilliant to hear contractors now telling us about passive house.
Yeah.
They're saying it's just fantastic to have. It's just totally flipped.
We have a very big partnership. I've worked a long time with John Brookland over at the Passive House Trust, and it's been, and I think we're going to do something at the show in March as well, just showing the scale of uptake as well. It's now in the thousands of
brilliant.
certified buildings coming through.
Yeah, it's really, really huge, and Passive House Trust have been instrumental in supporting the group as well. It's really, but there's been that pipeline of work So that's, it's been excellent. It's been great for them to jump on board, and hopefully whatever the BestFest Scottish equivalent standard will be will motivate that change as well, and so we don't need to retrofit what we're building today. We can avoid that as much as possible.
Big theme, and I think you've mentioned it there, it's been collaboration, and these groups of whether it's tier one contractors or the supply chain coming together. And I think it's probably worth talking about your alliance as well, with nations as well. That's a fantastic collaborative project.
It's been really good. National Retrofit Hub have been instrumental in managing that and pulling the group together, but we've been meeting regularly to understand how we can all learn from each other, basically, and everyone's at a different stage in the journey. As you've seen, Northern Ireland's slightly further behind. Republic of Ireland, they've got a retrofit strategy, so they're further ahead. But then, as Joe was mentioning, they're at the kind of finish line, and they've got to unpick all the way back and how okay, you've got to do this, but how can you do it, and how can you bring everyone?
And then in Wales, we're seeing a lot of exemplar projects coming out as well. So
this is across the full journey, and it's really good. Where Scotland sits slightly different. We've got some policies in place that maybe don't meet some of the requirements. We don't fully adopt past 2035. There's this kind of a lot of the contracts are kind of an influence of, or it's not quite defined. But so we're at a kind of different journey, a different stage in that as well. But we did a report just specifically on Glasgow, but the need for a retrofit hub. And again, it was in stakeholder engagement through that, and what the hub should be. So hopefully we've taken some learnings from that, which we can deploy in Retrofit Scotland as well.
Brilliant. I think events like BestFest and what you've done today, the International Retrofit Conference, are so great, bringing so many minds together. This event has grown rapidly over the years, and there's 500 people here today. You had to provide everyone lunch, so thank you for that. But I think one of the key things is what's the actions that come out of this, and it'd be great to what's your view? What does the next next year look like, and also going forward for
I think it's always we always reflect after and say, well, what's the takeaways and what do we need to do now? So today was all about ambition into action, and seeing where last year we kind of said, we had quite a lot with the International Retrofit Conference, more so than BestFest. It was a lot more scene setting, and we felt like we need activity is really happening, so we need to demonstrate that, and what comes next as well. And I think we kind of collaboration is at the heart of everything that we do. And when you're in the room and you see all the people that you're working with, and you actually can take a bit of time and go, we're doing some really great stuff, but we just want to do more, we want to amplify it, or we want to bring other people in. So that's all. BestFest is the opportunity to join those connections, really.
So I think the big announcement today was obviously Retrofit Scotland. What's the next steps for that? How can people get involved?
So this afternoon we have a workshop, which will split into the three areas of education, communities, and wider kind of business engagement. So what we really want out of that is what's needed. We have ideas of what we think is needed, but we want to hear from industry, and we want to get industry and public sector and academia all involved so that we can support that journey. Our practical training that we're developing will be there to support universities and colleges slot into their curriculum. So the ambition is that through the hub and spoke model, National Retrofit Centre, Scotland's National Retrofit Centre being the hub, and then the spoke, and that's beyond Scotland as well, the ambition.
Oh, it's brilliant. Well, I think if you're listening to this, there's going to be so much coming out of Best and the National Retrofit Centre, so it's an exciting time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lovely to.
So carrying on the Futurebuild special at BestFest, I'm absolutely pleased to be joined by Lynsey Brydson, Impact Programme Director here at Best. Lynsey, great to have you on.
Thanks for having me on, Martin. I appreciate it.
So I wanted to start off, and as we always do, is find out a little bit about yourself and maybe your career in the built environment.
Yeah, sure. So as I said, I'm Impact Programme Director at Best. I've been with Best for 6 years now. Doesn't feel like 6 years at all. I started with Best as a Programme Manager. And then moved to impact manager position, and then more recently was head of digital, and then over the summer became Impact Programme Director. Prior to Best, my background was working in construction, mainly business development and marketing for a variety of sort of tier 1, tier 2 contractors within Scotland. And I'll be honest, I fell into construction as a career. It wasn't planned, but I've been working in the industry for about 13 years now, and it's one of those, life chances that has completely paid out. It's been a great career for me.
So before we sort of go into Best and 10 years of Best as well, it'd be great sort of maybe touching on some points in your career as well, around those sort of 13 years. What have some of the challenges been? What some of the highs been?
Yeah, so challenges and highs. More recently, working in innovation is just such an incredibly exciting space to be in, and that's really that's something that I personally find really motivates me. I enjoy the chat, but there is challenge intrinsic into that. Because you're trying to do things differently, and there's a lot to be done in terms of, rather than just solving a problem, you're also having to look at the much bigger picture of how innovation can be implemented at scale, and that is a challenge for myself and for the team at Best in general. Just an example of that, for example, we've spoken a lot this morning about Retrofit, about the skills gap within Retrofit, and that's something we discussed yesterday at the Best Summit as well. So you could come up with the best solution in the world, but if you don't have the workforce to deliver that, then you're hitting a major problem. Another issue is cultural change as well, and getting that mindset shift from what can in times be quite a traditional industry. How do we help people come on that journey and understand that innovation is something that can help them, and something that is being done with them and not to them? I think that's really important as well.
So you've been at Best for 6 years. It's been going for 10 years. Are we starting to see that change?
Yeah, I think we are. It's still, and there are always setbacks along the way, and I wouldn't say it's not a linear path. Things will happen and they will stop, and then something else will come along. But certainly in terms of Best as an organisation, I mean, when we started 10 years ago from nothing, there was no innovation centre for the built environment within Scotland. And now the size that we are, having substantial impact. We are working out with Scotland, we're working UK, we're also working internationally now as well. And it's just one of the things I really enjoy about being at Best is getting to collaborate with people who get it. And I want to support you and help you move on the journey. That is not to say that you should forget people who are maybe a bit more resistant, that you have to help try and bring them on the path as well. Tell
us a little bit about the Scottish built environment. Maybe some of the, you have your own regs up here.
We do.
Differences. Maybe some of the things that makes it a little bit more unique.
As I say, building regs planning are different. Housing has devolved and things like that. As are things like health service has devolved in Scotland as well. And that has things like that have a big impact on the built environment too. In construction, the built environment in Scotland is made up, I think it's around about 95% SMEs. So really heavy focus on small to medium sized enterprises here north of the border. And that is that's, I mean, how, from Beth's point of view, or from anyone who's engaging with the construction industry, how can you possibly engage with all those people when it's not, a few main organisations you're going through, there's multiple ones. And you can go through trade bodies, which we do, we collaborate with trade bodies on a regular basis. But again, there are a lot of trade bodies in Scotland as well. I think over 100. So it's, as an organisation at Best, it's like, how can you ensure that you're reaching as many people as you can, and you're making them aware of the opportunities and the progress within the industry.
And we touched on innovation, and I know the Best, you work a lot on these low carbon materials in particular. Obviously, Scotland has a great tradition of using natural building products, a lot of stone, but also timber as well. You sort of, what sort of innovations are you seeing around that?
Timber is a really good one. So particularly for the work we've been doing at Best. So Scotland has a lot of forestry, but Scottish timber has traditionally not been able to be used as a building material because the trees grow too quickly. It's very wet. It's not strong enough. But through projects that we've been working with at Best for really since our inception, and with partners like Edmund Napier University, our host university, Edinburgh University, SMEs like Ecosystem Technologies, we have been running projects, particularly one called Transforming Timber, which has proven that if you take Scottish timber and you dry it to around about 10% moisture content, and then you use it as cross-laminated timber, it is then strong enough to stand up as a building material. And quite excitingly at Best, we have I think the only CLT vacuum press in the UK. And at our campus in Hamilton, we've just put in an investment in some new equipment, so we're going to be able to help commercialise homegrown timber as a building material. So that's a really exciting development. There's a lot more lower embodied carbon, for example, but also looking at how generating a new income stream for Scottish industry and reducing the reliance on exports. About 80% of our homes in Scotland are built with timber frames. Because it's much quicker to build that way in Scotland. We don't have great weather. So if something interrupts that supply chain, it can have a major impact. And most recently, we saw what interrupted the supply chain was COVID, when timber effectively stopped coming into the industry, and that had a real knock-on. Prices went extremely high. Projects had to slow down and stop. So by generating something that can help solve part of that issue, it's a real win for the sort of Team Scotland economy.
It's on the new build side of things. You mentioned that a large SME community there of builders. Do you see a lot of self build compared to England, or is it sort of a similar level?
I'd say it's probably around about a similar level.
Okay.
It's not. There are some really good examples. There was a government grant for self build, but I'm not sure how successful it was. Might cut that bit. So yeah, I would say it's around about. I think people are definitely interested, particularly I would say in rural areas where there are substantial housing issues, and that's something that Best is focusing on at the minute as well. How do we address the issue of the lack of affordable housing within our rural areas? Working with partners like Highlands and Islands Enterprise, for example, the Highlands Council. There's a big focus with the Regional Economic Partnership in that region about how can we address something which not only is allowing people to stay in the region, but is also, if a major employer is coming up, one of the barriers they face is that there's no housing stock for their potential workforce. So it's an economic enabler as well.
I imagine that's something that's quite unique to Scotland, where you have these real isolated rural communities, in fact.
It applies. I live in the south of Scotland, and actually it applies to the south of Scotland as well. So to a degree as well, it's difficult to get enough affordable housing. So your young people leave the region, and that's what you want to retain.
So we just had Katrina on, and we were talking quite a lot about the retrofit and massive announcement today, obviously around Retrofit Scotland, which is going to have so much of an impact. Can you tell us a little bit maybe about the sort of the scale of retrofit in Scotland, and just maybe some of the opportunities around that?
Yeah, so like any country, we need to retrofit our building stock, and as I'm sure you know, the UK, and not just Scotland in particular, but has some of the oldest and leakiest stock in Europe. So there's a lot of work to be done there. Retrofit Scotland will be looking at multiple areas to help address that, and part of that will be looking at citizen engagement as well. So the Green Economy Centre for High Density Buildings, which was launched yesterday at the Best Summit, with the multiple partners from the University of Edinburgh leading on that. That's looking at high density buildings and how we can retrofit them. Scotland, in particular, Central Belt, where we are right now, a huge amount of tenements. And they bring their own challenges in retrofitting. There have been some really successful examples of retrofitting tenements, but it's how do we achieve that at scale? It's something that we need to address. There's a lot of complexities in the types of buildings. How do you, it's not that retrofitting a single building is necessarily simple, but when there's a lot of flats and lots of different sort of legal implications, it can be more complex.
I think today has been, you've had just some of the most inspiring speakers that I've seen at a conference, and I think one of the sessions that was really impactful was when you showcased some amazing future leaders. In the built environment, and all being female as well, actually, which was great to see that panel. And it brought on quite a lively debate, and I know a sort of a topic that's you're very passionate about, and you've been in the women in property movement as well. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the challenges and maybe that the built environment has in regards to that?
Yeah, I mean, we're not very diverse in any way whatsoever. I think in gender, it's probably one of the areas we do better, and that's around about 13% women in the industry. In some of the trades and apprenticeship, you can't even measure it because it's so low. It's just not seen. You heard talking today Some of the panelists were saying about, being the only woman on a site and 200 men. And I've been in that position.
Yeah.
It does make you feel a bit uncomfortable. And so we have a huge skill shortage. I mean, in looking at gender alone, if we're not attracting 50% of the population to the industry, there is a massive issue.
I agree, and I think this is where this whole need of changing the perception.
Exactly.
I think of construction and almost selling the opportunity as well, and showcase. You mentioned innovation just a minute ago. Showcasing that it is a really inspiring, exciting industry to get involved in.
Yeah, it's an incredible. I mean, I absolutely loved working in construction. It wasn't a planned career for me, but I'm so glad it happened. But the built environment impacts on every single person. And the opportunity to get involved and do something that, if you get it right, the benefits are enormous. We can make a built environment that is more sustainable. We can have a built environment that's more inclusive in the way it's designed. We can have a built environment that just creates healthier conditions for everyone. That sort of impact is absolutely massive. There are lots of benefits to it as well. I find it to be quite a flexible area in terms of career change and working in different things. And as you see, the innovation is coming on all the time. It's really an exciting place to be in.
Absolutely, and I think you make a fair point there around we don't see the level of quality on site in particular.
No.
But I think with advancements maybe in especially off-site construction, it's less reliant on brawn or stamina, etc. I think it should be a more appealing industry to get involved in.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of it. I mean, you were saying about the perception of it, and there is still the perception that. In construction in particular, when you're out on site, is dirty and muddy, and don't get me wrong, it can be those things, but there are so many other aspects to it now as well, and so many other ways to get involved. So, and that's not just, and if we can get that right, I mean, I've spoken a lot about gender, but if we can get that right, that will be advantageous to attracting new entrants from across different characteristics.
Absolutely, and I've worked with a lot of partners. If you look at organisations like Skanska, for example, that on the deep green side of things, again, I think if you're passionate about the environment, the built environment is the one to get involved in as well. Because it's, I think as Duncan said today, he put up those large stats around, the climate emergency, the biodiversity. We are the solution. And I think that should be a way of attracting new talent as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And we see a lot of we do quite a lot at Best. We do a lot of schools engagement work as well.
Okay.
And you get the kids coming in and what's their perception of the built environment, and it's all the traditional things. And then we do work with them, we do like workshops and things like that, show them our innovation factory, and they come away absolutely enthused. And some of the ideas that they come up with the workshop, that's the kind of ideas that we need to be getting into the industry, get that sort of fresh perspective on how we can do things differently.
Absolutely. And so what does the future hold for Best? Because Stephen today made a massive announcement.
Yeah.
Which is hugely funding, which is great. No more 5 years at a time. But so that's fantastic. But what does the next 5 years look like? 10 years?
So thanks to Scottish Government through the Scottish Funding Council, we have secured our core funding. We're now a permanent part of the landscape within Scotland, which is great, and that's fantastic because that gives us a base to work from for that. And the funding is given to us to help support Scotland's universities and colleges. So that part of our work, working with universities and colleges, is still absolutely critical to the work that we do, sort of almost being the bridge between industry and academia, and getting what can be people who talk two slightly different languages to talk to each other and see the benefits of collaboration. Beyond that, so we've made a few announcements today. Obviously, we're going to have a big focus. We already heavily focused on retrofit, but we're going to be looking at that, expanding our operations in that area as well. We're going to be looking at timber, as I mentioned, about how we can commercialise that. The reason we are in Paisley Town Hall today is because our own building, one of our own buildings at our campus, where we normally hold BestFest, is being retrofitted. So this time next year, you'll be able to come and see that as a centre of excellence for retrofit. And that, I think, is part of the point of Best, and will be a bit focused for us moving forward, is, we can talk about innovation all the time, but once people come and see it, then that really is a way to change mindsets. Then people go, oh, that's what you meant. And you can do every, webinar, you can release papers and things like that, but actually having something that people can almost touch is a really powerful message. So we'll be continuing to develop our campus at Hamilton, but important to realise that we are not just based in Hamilton. We don't just work from there. We work across Scotland. We're doing a lot of projects in England now. We just launched today with the National Retrofit Alliance of Nations, working with partners in Ireland, also in Wales as well. So that, you know, what can we learn from other sectors, from other nations, that we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel, and we can be quite bad as an industry for doing pilot after pilot after pilot. Let's just stop that. Let's get on with it and find out how we can improve.
I think, you know, that's the whole construction industry needs that at the moment, is that you know, that energy that, you know, organisations like yourselves bring to that. And I think it's been clear at BestFest that, you know, the buzz in the room today was phenomenal. So I'm excited to see what's going to come out of Best.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.